What's happening, everybody? My name is Mr. Info 5000. And today we're going to be talking about President Joe Biden telling something that's politically correct. I'll say tall tales. Not politically correct lies. Now, first of all, it's always alarming to me when someone just lies and I know it's a lie. Now, being a public figure with everything you say can be verified, fact checked. Now, being a private citizen, not everything you say can be verified. So I'm like, well, why would someone lie if nobody knows what really happened besides that person, depending on if someone else was involved? Just don't lie. I don't lie. I don't know how to lie. Lying is just, why would you lie? Why would you even lie? And especially if you're a public figure, well, they can fact check you on the dinner that you ate the night before, or they can verify the lunch that you just ate. They'll verify everything. And why would they want to do that? Well, it goes to your character. It goes to your integrity. If you will lie on something that you know that they can verify, what else would you lie about? Oh, I know what you might lie about. How the fact that the economy the inflation was at 1.4% when you took office. And now it's at about 8%. But no, you just did a press conference, or you were just talking and said it was at 2%. That's a flat out lie. And the reason I know it's a lie, you can just do something called observable reality. Go into your grocery store. Think about the price that you pay for. Because we normally, in a grocery store, we normally buy just all the same things as a person. And what I mean by that is I normally will buy, because, I'm going to buy my breakfast. I normally buy the same eggs. I normally buy the same 3 or 4 meats, and things of that nature. When it comes to home goods, well, you don't buy the same thing because you just don't buy home goods as often. So the prices, you probably won't notice those as much. And the biggest alarm is the freaking gas prices. In my part of the country, they are $3.99 at the moment. And I was thinking, I was like, if Joe wants to make people feel better and think there's an improvement in the economy, the only thing he got to do is do something about the gas prices, which he has the power to do. And then people will automatically feel like things are improving. They may not necessarily be improving, because what will offset is that you're going to go to the store, you're going to pay $3 for a dozen of eggs, when last year you paid like $1.12. Oh, believe me, I know. I'm sorry, before he got in office, not last year, but before he got in office, paid like $1.12. Because I'm not a real big connoisseur of food, but I love breakfast, so I do eat breakfast. So anything got to do with breakfast, I know what the price is down to the T. Although I will say, I usually buy the 18 from Walmart. A couple years ago, it was like $3.12. I bought some earlier this week. It's $1.52. That's an improvement. But I went over and bought some ground beef, and it was 60% higher than it was a couple years ago. Oh, believe me, I know, because when I grocery shop, I have it in my head what everything is going to cost according to the list that I have. I know what the total is going to be before I go out the door. So believe me, that's why I know about the prices. So this is going to be a video of Joe Biden getting fact check on these tall tales / lies that he has been known to tell over the 672 years that he has been in politics. Enjoy. Or not.
repeating some of his now debunked tall tales. That was during a trip to Milwaukee yesterday, including the circumstances of his birth, his father's education, and his interactions with an Amtrak conductor, to name just a few.
My grandpa Biden, who died very young, died in the hospital I was born in 6 days before I was there, before I was born. My dad was a high school educated guy, was well read and worked like hell. He didn't have a chance to go to college. As having been listed as the poorest man in the Congress for 36 years, true, my wife called me one day and says, "Did you read the paper today?" And I was up campaigning for a guy named Pat Leahy in Vermont. I said, "No, honey, I didn't see the Wilmington paper." It said, "Headline, above the fold." Only a politician's wife would say that. Biden, poorest man in Congress. Is that true? One of the senior guys in Amtrak who I rode with the whole time comes up and goes, "Joey, baby," grabs my cheek. Swear to God.
All of those false. Where's Glenn Kessler? Can't even say his name. The Washington Post fact checker when you need him must be napping. The president went on to tell another tall tale, this time the success of Bidenomics.
In case you haven't noticed, inflation's down too and it's going lower. We've done more. We have more to do with inflation though. It's just about 3% now. It's predicted to go lower than that. Wages are growing faster than inflation. Folks, that's Bidenomics. It's about growing an economy by strengthening the middle class. And making things in America again. In my first 2 years in office, even with all we've done, I'm the first one to cut the federal debt by $1.7 trillion. $1.7 trillion cut, because it generated the growth. Folks, we've always had a plan that turning things around, making it America stronger and safer and more competitive. Bidenomics is just another way of saying restoring the American dream.
Well, that's it. That's the deception campaign. It's what we'll hear from now until November. And he's relying on the media not fact-checking him, not covering him with truth. Look at the CNN headline, Joe, from yesterday. This is a tweet. President Biden hasn't let his predecessor's previous 3 indictments stop him from traveling the country and trying to break through with a pitch on Bidenomics.
The post-Chris Licht era is in full effect. Where they're the old CNN again, the resistance network that serves at the pleasure of the sitting president. 7 in 10 Americans believe that Joe Biden is not handling the economy well. Even a higher amount believe he's not handling inflation well. That's because inflation is still 250% higher than it was when he took office. You want a fact check? There's one right there. Overall, this is a man, Joe Biden. I wrote a book about him, so I kind of know these things. He plagiarized in law school. He plagiarized during his first run for the presidency, before you were born, mind you. All right. This is in 1988. That should have been the end of him right there, when you got caught plagiarizing a speech during a presidential campaign. Of course, he ends up winning the presidency many years later. Once said that he tried to see Nelson Mandela as a senator while in South Africa. I'm pretty sure that would make headlines if that actually happened. Of course, that did not happen. I could go on and on. Oh, yeah, I never talked to my son about his business dealings. That's a current lie right now, right? The bottom line is, Kaylee, that the goal is to make Donald Trump the focus, but not Donald Trump's policies on the economy, on the border, on education, on crime, on foreign policy towards China. It's to make Donald Trump the focus in terms of his legal challenges at this point. And then for Joe Biden to run the same campaign that he did in 2020, that's by pleading the fifth and not talking to the press in any capacity and showing up once in a while at a campaign. Make it a referendum on Donald Trump, the person, not the policies, and they think they can win again.
Yeah, it's the basement strategy, Kaylee. He wants to be the background noise.
Yeah, and I mean, Biden has a long history of gaffes, tall tales, verbal blunders, and the media for a very long time has excused all of them as just, oh, well, that's Uncle Joe. It's what he does. But at what point do the constant lies and tall tales become an indication of the man's character? I mean, he's not just lying about being arrested to try and see Nelson Mandela. He's not just lying about participating in civil rights marches. He's not just lying about how his son Beau Biden died. He's lying about his policies and their consequences, and Bidenomics is a perfect example. Claiming that you single-handedly brought down inflation from 9% to 2% when it was 1.4% when you first took office is inherently deceptive. You are lying to the American people who are way poorer than they were when you first took office. It's insulting, and I really hope that in 2024, voters finally say, you know what, enough of this.
Kennedy, because this is reality. I mean, look at the wall. CNN here. U.S. inflation means families are spending $709 more. Lending club, paycheck to paycheck lifestyles, cash-strapped Americans' new norm. And this one, more Americans ending up homeless at a record rate. That's Bidenomics, guys.
Yeah, Bidenomics is living off your credit cards when your credit card interest rate is 20% plus. And, those are the highest base rates we've seen pretty much in history. So the reason, Joe talks about 30% of Americans giving the president approval on inflation, it's because they very much feel it. And it is a tax, and they are being punished every single month. And 60% of Americans in every tax bracket living paycheck to paycheck because they're being promised that this is going to get better. So if you hear the president and the Treasury Secretary and the Fed chair coming out saying inflation is tamed, the economy is doing great, you start to spend like it. And the problem is you spend more than you're bringing in. And at what point are people going to be so underwater that the economy craters when consumer confidence is completely lost? It's like if things are going so great, then when is the Fed going to cut rates? Not anytime soon. They're going to continue raising rates, which means that mortgages are going to be more expensive. Fewer people will have access to housing, and more people are going to get fired. That's Bidenomics.
Yeah, and, Carly, this stuck out to me. I read it 2 days ago, and I can't get it out of my head. We're both millennials. We graduated during the Great Recession and Obama's era. There was a brief reprieve, 4 years that were really good under Trump, but this is the reality of our generation from the Washington Post. Those born between 1981 and 1996 have been called the unluckiest generation since entering the workforce. They have experienced the slowest economic growth of any age group. They have also been weighed down by student debt, childcare cost, and the median U.S. house sold for $416,000 in the second quarter. That's a 26% jump since early 2020. Delaying life decisions, kind of gloomy.
Yeah, housing used to be just the standard. It used to be the norm. And now owning your own home is becoming a luxury. That's not a good state of affairs at all. And then you have a lot of young people that are staying in their parents' basements or their parents' house for a lot longer. And there's a whole psychological element that comes into play when you feel like you're trying so hard to succeed, but you can't get to the next step. And people are marrying later and having fewer children as a result of it. So there's a lot of different things that are happening because of these higher prices that are affecting so many people, in particular young people who should be striving and reaching goals that they are not. I think that Moody's headline that you just read, that the president is talking about how he's lowering inflation now, but people are still spending $709 more now than they were before he entered office 2 years ago. I mean, that really says it all, and that's why his approval rating is at 37% when it comes to the economy. So his main message so far when he has gone on the campaign trail has been Bidenomics. I mean, he put his name into an economic message, and that is a huge risk for him.
Yeah, and this is the only thing Republicans should be talking about between now and next November, because this is reality and it's what people care about.